I got my power pole down, stuck in the mud in the bottom of the lake.
Welcome to the Power Pull Down podcast. Today we have Chris and Bobby Lane on the show. In this episode, I'd like to take a look into the Lane family, fishing, and the future. You guys started fishing at a very young age. What was it like growing up together and fishing all around Central Florida?
Oh, well, it was fantastic.
I'll take it, Chris. Well,
okay. Well, I was going to say it was
no,
fantastic.
go for it.
Because
Go for it.
Central Florida had so many lakes, so many creeks. There was water anywhere you wanted to go. Fish were in the ditches in your front yard if you wanted it. So growing up in Central Florida, I think the thing that was really cool about growing up there was the fact that me, Arnie, Bobby, my sister, our cousin, it didn't matter who, what, when, or where. If there was water and we had time off or weren't at school or at soccer practice, then we were fishing. And I mean, that's what was so cool about it, is you didn't have to go far to find it.
Yep, and I'll definitely add just a small thing to that. We have what they call the phosphate lakes down, the phosphate pits, the Mosaic and the Agrico and all that. And I mean, it was literally put a plastic worm on, throw it out the side of the boat and catch a 6 to 7, 8 pounder. So, you know, we started what we call Jurassic Park basically down there in Florida. And it was not just go out there and catch a few fish, man. You caught some full grown ones too. It really was a cool place to grow up.
That's
some
really
of us
cool.
some of us got to go in there like you and, had permission. And some of us went in there that didn't have permission, and it didn't end so well for us.
Sounds like some of the golf course ponds I knew growing up in Land O'Lakes that had a lot of big bass in them too.
Yeah, you just had to learn to run fast, because if they were coming, you had to figure out where you were going to hide your fishing pole and go hauling butt.
That's good stuff. I'm sure, though, they all got to know you boys running around town.
Yeah, well, they knew our parents.
Uh-oh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you always come talk to the parents first.
Knowing the parents, I'll give you one quick story. It won't take long. There was a lot of orange groves around us where we grew up. And the one about knowing our parents was me, Arnie, and Bobby decided to roll oranges under the car and see which one got smashed first when they were driving down the road, and roll them. We threw them. I think it was a brand new Cadillac, and he went straight to my parents' house, and me, Arnie, and Bobby were noses against the wall, and that did not work out well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Let's talk about some stuff today. We see the new influx of young anglers doing so well in these major tournament trails, but I'd like to know what it was like to make it to the top level when you guys built your fishing careers versus how it's accomplished today. It had to be much different.
Yeah, it started off, Chris started the professional side of things. I mean, if we go way back on Lake Watery, I believe, and away he went. And I honestly said to myself, if he can do it, I think I can do it. So I started in the BFLs, went to the Ever Starts back then, and then over to the FLW, which we both qualified for, and then we fished the Opens, which we both qualified to make the Elite Series. And back then, it was honestly fish exactly what you were raised doing. It was flipping, throwing a worm, throwing a topwater plug. If it looked good and felt good, you did it. In the right areas, you would sneak into back ponds where nobody else was getting. Knowing, because that's the way we grew up, was fishing kicker trails and back ponds and little areas. Grandpa or Dad would run the boat a half a mile through a lily pad patch to get into one hole that was, the size of a school bus, and you'd catch 15 bass out of that one hole. And all them days are gone right now, minus, Keith Poche and some of the stunts that he pulls. It is more electronic based. It is more Google. Course didn't exist back then. None of that. You fished by the seat of your pants, and you tried to figure out how to catch the bigger ones, and it was just the way you did it, and it was fun, and you learned a lot on the road. But nowadays, it is, I mean, completely different. There is no similarities to when we grew up. The bank beaters aren't going to probably make it very far anymore unless they learn some sort of their electronics. Not saying you can't have success, but things have definitely become changed into full circle for sure. And fishing pressure, more people on the water, boat traffic, you know, natural vegetation, a lot changed in the last 10 years.
Do you want to add anything, Chris?
Oh, I'd love to add something to that. I agree with Bobby. I mean, you know, before it was, you know, you were a fisherman, and that's what was really cool about it. It's because you would explore. It was exploring. And I know now with the new forward-facing sonar and all the technology, Google Earth and all that, you know, this goes back 20 years when we started. And you didn't have any of that. You had your Lowrance and your graphs and some, I guess, some down imaging and so forth, but just kind of a sonar type thing. But I think with the way that it is now, you know, the generations coming up, you know, they've played the video games, and that's really what they're doing on the screens. It's no different. I mean, you know, whether it's good, I don't think that playing the video games is the way that tournament should be won, but that's neither here nor there. I think that, you know, making it back then, you felt a awesome sense of accomplishment to actually make the tour level. And I think that was pretty cool, you know, that feeling back then. I don't know if that younger generation has that same feeling of accomplishments. They may, because it may be just like them beating their buddy on the couch in a NCAA football game or something like that. So that feeling of accomplishment may be the same thing. And they are exploring under the water to where what we were exploring, you know, was above the water. So it's, you know, I don't think it's right or wrong either way. I just think that, you know, the technology has advanced in everything, and especially in bass fishing, you know, and to watch it now, I'm sure that feeling is the same for those guys as it was for us when we made the tour level and, you know, we're able to win at the top level. I think that's where, when you can win at the top level, it just, you find that the younger generation is winning way more than the older generation. Of course, minus Bobby on the Harris chain. That was pretty awesome event. But yeah, I think you know, the average age, I'd like to know what that stat is, the average age that's winning tournaments now compared to what it was before the technology of forward-facing sonar.
It'd be
I
cool
know
to
Chris
see.
has it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Chris
It'd
has
be
a
cool.
son real quick, Dan, and Cal, and I got my son coming up, Bobby Jr. at 17. And I see the excitement with Bobby Jr. Cal's about 5 years older, and he's already making big headway. But the excitement for those two is really unbelievable. Starting at you got to remember, me and Chris both left this out. We didn't start really getting into fishing until we were in our mid 20s, 25, 26, something like that. These kids are getting educated now at 15, 16, and 17. So there was a on the tackle warehouse or whatever he decides to fish. The excitement is going to be overwhelming for him for sure.
Absolutely. And you kind of brought up my next question is, you know, the subject of young anglers, and you both have sons that are competitive in this sport. You know, Cal is doing great and Bobby is competing all the way through high school. But what do you like best about their journey or their fishing opportunities that are in front of them at such a young age?
Yeah, I think what's so special
I like, go
about
ahead.
them growing up, when they're growing up and when they're getting into, you know, the tournament side of bass fishing. I mean, they've grown up in it, and seeing how excited they are and chasing their dreams, you know, at such a young age. You know, when me and Bobby started, there wasn't high school, there wasn't college, there wasn't any of this. And watching the information get soaked up so quickly now at a young age, I think it's huge for the sport. I think it's huge for the sport of bass fishing. And I think that there's a little difference when you talk about fishing and then when you talk about tournament bass fishing. That's a big difference out there. A lot of people they go fishing and they absolutely love it. The tournament side of bass fishing is a whole nother level. It's a whole nother avenue that the kids are taking a risk to go do, just like with any other sport. They're putting everything they have into making it to the top level and being the best. And I think that's really, really awesome to watch these kids at a young age get in there, get after it, and use the tools that they have. Just like me and Bobby and Arnie, we would use the tools that we had available to us. These kids have a lot more tools and they're learning so much faster now.
And I'll add to the business side of that. I love that me and Chris and all of us have created a sponsor platform for these kids also growing up. Sponsors know, as well as we're talking about, you know, old and new right now, how sponsors are always looking for the up and coming, because they know that the old isn't going to be around forever. I mean, there is a thing called loyalty, and I love that about bass fishing. It's kind of a more you know, a sport that doesn't really go away. Longevity is definitely a part of bass fishing. And when you lock yourself into some of these sponsors, just like Power Pole, you know, you guys have stuck with us through thick and through thin, and whether we catch them or not, you know, we can call at any time, and you guys can call us anytime. And I love that moving forward with Bobby Jr. and with Cal. Down the road, that the sponsors are still around, they're still doing well. Everybody has to learn their niche in this business, and when you figure it out, it becomes a lot easier. And I think that helps me and my wife, and I'm sure Chris and Holly the same, to know that if they decide to go pro and they do well, or they come off well, represent themselves well, talk on camera, do your interviews, do your media days, that, you know, your sponsors will stick with you. And I'm glad that me and Chris have built a platform for both our sons to have, and all the other kids out there that are looking to do it, that, you know, once you get involved with a sponsor, man, you know, it becomes a part of the family, to be honest.
You're absolutely right. And to say things like that, you know, fishing is great and winning tournaments is great, but what you do outside of that for your sponsors is massive. The past 2 years, just having Cal Lane's boat there at the Major League Fishing REDCREST in our Power Pole booth is huge. And hearing Cal talk to the crowd and to the people, and they all come up and they want his autograph at a young age, is awesome. And speaking of a young age, both of you guys give back and you nurture the next generation of anglers. You know, Bobby Lane, you've got the Bobby Lane Kids Cup, which has hundreds and hundreds of kids out on Lake Kissimmee. Chris, you've got the Kids Camp on Gunnersville, which is an absolute blast. What do you like most about each of your events?
I love the smiles at the end of the day. You know, we do a goodie bag, and when we all, you know, the Classic, the REDCREST, it doesn't matter. You leave there with a car full of goodies, whether it's coolers and gift cards and shirts and hats and just all kinds of neat little things. And I think my fondest memory of of my kids' event. Number one is getting the picture with all the scholarships. I'm actually getting the chills just remembering we gave away 55 scholarships last year and $75,000. I mean, the number keeps growing every year, but the little kids and even the high school and the college, it's a full circle thing for us. When they graduate the cup, they actually come back and be a boat captain. But for me, all of that is wonderful, but I love watching the kids, just like we did at Tom Mann Jr.'s fish camp in Alabama when we used to go, was getting those bags of goodies, and we would play with our baits, and you look at the kids sitting on the dock after a long, hard day, just tinkering with everything in the bag, whether it's stickers or hats or buffs or, anything. And all the baits that we give away. And me and Chris and Arnie, we used to spend our evenings trading baits, and it was really cool to watch that come full circle. And now I get the opportunity to give those kids the opportunity that I had somewhat when I was younger.
Yeah, and the same here. We just got done as of this past weekend. We had that Foodland Team Bass tournament, and then we run a kids event. And we're not at the tournament level with our kids. Our kids are a little bit different. They're usually from the ages of about, I don't know. We've given rods to 1-year-olds, and we give Bass Pro Shop and Kidcaster poles. The first 300 get a brand new pole. And we just gave all of those away at this last event, and it's like that every year. But to that point that Bobby's saying, the feeling that you get to give back, the feeling that I get when these kids are on the dock and they catch their very first fish, that is what, is cool for me, to see them catch their first fish, to be a part of that. And then to be at a tournament and you're going in, I won't forget it. It was probably 8 years ago. I was fishing an open on Lake Douglas, and this kid had just turned, I think you got to be 16 to get in as a co-angler. And I'm in Bass Pro trying to get some baits to go out. I don't think I did very well in that tournament, but I was trying to find some baits to go try to catch some fish. And this kid comes up to me, and I'm looking at him, and he looks familiar. And he's like, "Hey, you remember me?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." And he's like, I've been at your kids event every year. Now I'm fishing as a co-angler. And I thought, wow, man, how cool is that to instill, that kind of message into the kids of putting fishing into the hands of children, because a lot of them don't have the means to do it. And if you give them the means, and if they have the opportunity, then they can go from there and then go to the Bobby Lane Cup and then go to college and then go and chase the circuit and try to chase their dream. So like Bobby said, it goes in full circle. And I think what's really neat about it is we're actually having the opportunity with all the sponsors that are involved on his side and on my side to be able to give back to the generations that are coming up.
Excellent, guys. It's just wonderful, everything you do. And I mean, I got to fish it last year with my 10-year-old Bobby, and what an amazing event.
I think you had to fish it, Dan. Your 10-year-old said, "Dad, everybody's going to the cup." And you're like, "Okay, I guess we're going."
And he's already ready for next year. So, and I'm excited too. It is amazing seeing all of those boats, smelling them good old 2 strokes in the morning and blasting off. It is fun. Let's go a little bit back in time. Power pole is 26, 27 years old, and it was used by saltwater guides and redfish pros 10 years before freshwater took off. And obviously, growing up here in Central Florida, you guys were some of the first anglers to ever adopt a power pole anchor in bass fishing. What is your first memory of ever seeing a power pole or using a power pole?
Mine's definitely the Bassmaster Classic on Lake Hartwell. I think I was leading the event. I had the helicopter flying over me, and I had dual power poles at the time, and I'm pretty sure they were XLs or something like, I don't even remember what we had back then, but I remember trying to lift the poles. We all had to beach. It was really, really cold that morning, and I remember both the poles were down, and I went to put it in gear, and I wasn't going anywhere. And then I remembered that I had both my power poles stuck in the sand back there, and I lifted my poles, and I went out there and had a great day. Ended up finishing second or third in that classic, and never, I mean, I've experienced a lot, you know, in my life, and had some awesome wins. But for me in power pole, it was definitely that helicopter following me that day with those dual power poles. I've seen the picture and I've seen the clip. It was just a wonderful, wonderful feeling for me, and an opportunity for me to be involved in that at that time. And power pole, I think, had just, Robert had just said, Shamlin, about, I think we need to try. Somebody said, let's put 2 poles on the boat. And and then it happened, and then nobody bought 1 pole anymore. It was awesome for all, you know. But that was my fondest memory for sure, was running down old Lake Hartwell with that helicopter following me, and doing all the interviews that day and whatnot. That was a special day for sure.
Very cool.
Yeah,
Chris?
in mine, you know, I'll never forget it. I was sitting out off the rocks, and Daryl Davis comes pulling up to me, and I've got a new Ranger at this point in time, so I think I'm hot snot, right? And here comes this guy with 2 white poles on his, I think he had a Stratus at the time, and he was, I think, one of the first ones ever in freshwater to have them on there. And I'm like, look at this thing. What in the world are those 2 things on the boat? That thing was terrible. And he put them down and stopped his boat instantly. And I went, holy smokes. Let me see that again. And he did it again. And he's like, yeah, you just hit this button and they go down and you're anchored right there. You don't have to hit your trolling motor or anything. And I thought to myself, just like all fishermen do, like, man, how do we get those and then not tell anybody about it? Because you're definitely going to be able to catch more fish with these things, right? They're going to be such a useful tool. But the one thing about power pole and the design of them and the way that they are, you can't hide them. Everybody's going to know about them. And then the trend just took off from there. So remember seeing those on Daryl Davis's boat, and then going in, and one of my first sponsor, T.A. Mahoney, who's been a dealer for you guys forever, one of your first dealers down there in Tampa. You know, I was trying to raise some money to go fish the Elite Series, to go and get into professional bass fishing because of the amount of expenses that it costs to do it. And he was like, you know what? I'm never going to be to where I can give you a lot of money, but I got a company I want you to meet. And me and him went down, we sat in Robert Shamlin's office, and boy, did I learn the bass fishing side of business right then and right there, and what it took, you know, to be on the business side of things, and what it was going to be, what's going to be asked of you as an angler with a sponsor such as Power Pole to get in and to make their company more successful, but more importantly, to have a partnership with a company like Power Pole to grow together and to watch, you know, both companies just take off and soar. I think it's awesome.
I got one thing to add to that, Dan. I want to know, this one's for you. Mine was definitely, people thought mine were rocket launchers. I want to hear a couple of the craziest things you heard in your life that people say, what are those on your boat? They had no idea they were shallow water anchors. Do you have any ones of those you could add? Mine, everybody thought mine were rocket launchers, like I had fireworks in them.
Yeah, we've heard it all, from exhaust pipes to, if you get anywhere near MacDill Air Force Base, they thought they were bazookas or rocket launchers. And it's funny starting out, you know, you travel throughout Texas and Louisiana and you hear all types of nicknames for them, cricket legs, grasshoppers. So hearing, you know, that it is now kind of a staple to have 2 power poles on the boat, but the first descriptions were hilarious. I'd like to ask kind of a fun question here. If you had to guess, how many bass have you caught with your power poles down? And what is the most bass you have ever caught in one spot without ever moving when you were anchored down?
Ooh, wow.
Well,
that
I
happens
gotta
every
say,
single event for me.
yeah.
Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was just going to say, there's no way I could come up with a number, and there's no way I could come up with the difference in what it is with them up and with them down, or with or without them. The only thing I'll say is, if you don't have power poles, then you're missing an opportunity to catch a lot more fish, period. Period.
Yeah, I'm going to say probably. I remember a Bass Pro Tour, and I want to say it was on. Of course, we fish all you can catch with a minimum size limit, minimum size fish. Uh, I know I had a muscle bar. I want to say it was on Kissimmee or Lake Harris,
Hmm.
and I think I caught like 20. Oh, it was actually when the Bass Pro Tour first started. It wasn't a muscle bar. It was a shallow pond. In the period break, it ended, and I dropped my power poles to take the 15-minute break. And when he said lines in, I threw to, I think, 20 arrowheads, and I caught a bass off every single arrowhead, never lifting my power poles. And I remember going from very last place all the way into the championship, and then getting knocked out at the very end because another boat come running through there or something like that. But those things, silent, unbelievable, work every time you use them, man. I even here, I caught yesterday in heavy hitters, I caught 7 bass in less than a 45-minute stretch, and I'm just outside the cut. I'm 2 pounds from making the knockout round, but literally dropped my power poles and was able to make a long cast and catch them all day long with the power poles in one place. And that was my whole day, but it got me right where I needed to be. And if I would have just been out there drifting in that wind or trying to troll a motor around, I guarantee you I'd have never caught that many. So hard to say numbers, but definitely use them. Practice and every event, no matter deep, shallow, clear, dirty, it does not matter. I use them 95% of the day.
Very cool, great stuff. And I know I was watching yesterday through period one, and I'm like, come on, Bobby, what's going on? But to hear you got on them like that, and you go from no fish to all of a sudden you're up in it, and I can't wait to see how tomorrow comes in the next couple days up there at the Heavy Hitters event on Smith Lake. Don't want to talk too much about it because I don't want to overspeak or get anything wrong.
Right.
Yeah, definitely love watching it. For years and years, you guys used our anchors, but the past few years you've been running our Power Pull Move trolling motor. And shoot, Chris, you won the first big MLF event on Kissimmee right when we released the move, or a couple days before we released the move, and bam, you won the whole tournament. But the process, while we were developing the trolling motor, you guys were instrumental. You provided us all kind of feedback in what you wanted in the trolling motor. What were some of the must-haves that the Lane brothers needed to approve while we built this trolling motor that you can say, yep, I like that feature. I gave some input on those features.
Yeah, that's pretty good, Dan, because that is, you talk about the Bass Pro Tour went on Kissimmee, and I think it came down to like a minute 30 or what have you right there towards the end, right at the very end. And there was a lily pad patch that I had to go to, and I literally put that power pole move on high on 20, and it got me over to that pad patch fast enough to where I could power pole down and then pick it apart like I like to do. And I think that was a huge attribute to catching that fish to win that tournament. I mean, to get there in time and to know that you had a minute left to fish the rest of those lily pads compared to just barely getting over there. So one of the biggest attributes that I remember is a lot of the, foot pedals that are out there today, they have buttons on there that kind of control some of the accessories like an anchor or a constant on or what other buttons they have on it, to where I'm like, I hit those buttons on that foot pedal all the time on accident. I just hit them, and then I'm in anchor mode, and then I'm over here, and then the trolling motor's still on. And I said, you know, the one thing that I would like to see is to have every one of the accessories, like a reverse switch that the power pole move has, to have all of those accessories to where I can put them at my choice, that anybody can put them where they want, to where they're not going to step on them. But if they want to use that accessory, then they can hit that button without, you know, accidentally hitting the button. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things. And of course, we wanted it strong, like the Motor Guide gator mount that we used to all use in Florida, because it was so tough, because it was so durable. And I know Bobby's added some as well, but I think those two right there were the main things. And you don't hear about shafts breaking anymore.
Yep, definitely all the above. Mine is the quietness of a motor that has so much power. Me and Chris both cut our teeth fishing shallow water, all of Lake Kissimmee, Okeechobee, the Harris Chain. I mean, the deepest place in any of those is, you know, 6, 8 foot, 10 foot deep. And we never fished out there. We always fished in the weeds. To have something I can put on like 7 to 10 on my number, on my little dash there, and not hear the trolling motor. I have seen sight fish that I would never have seen before now, because I can look down there and they don't even hear the motor running. I love the fact that when you move your foot pedal, the head moves exactly with the foot pedal the way you turn it with forward facing sonar. And I'm not great at it, but I'm learning more and more about it every time I'm on the water. And to be able to watch my bait land and be able to use my foot pedal to touch, just barely, to have the head move one way or the next. It's not jumpy. It doesn't hesitate. I love the big giant prop that's on it. So you got all that power. I mean, it just goes anything you want to do. Not reverse, but if you turn it backwards, it goes backwards. I like the little Darth Vader dashboard that we have. I love that little noise that it makes. I know exactly where my numbers are. I'm telling you, the more I use it, the more I just absolutely love it. And the more people that get in my boat and be like, man, I can't even hear it. It's unbelievable. You guys have hit a home run with that. Grand slam, whatever we want to call it. And I was very, very glad to be a part of that from the very beginning, and being able to put my 2 cents in on some of the components for it means a lot too. To see it come into full circle and inhabit it on my boat now means a lot.
Yeah, and I think one thing to add to that, Dan, is let's go back and let's not forget, you know, the days of having to pull the trolling motor up and get the weeds off, pull the trolling motor up and get the weeds off, turn it here, turn it there, do this,
Yeah.
try to get this off, try to get that off. I mean, it would, you know, there would be sometimes when it would just drive you so batty. But the power pole move, you don't have that problem. You don't have a shaft breaking. You don't have the things that used to cause you to frustration and to have to be off the water to get things fixed and so forth. You don't have those issues anymore with the power pole move.
And it's lighter on my back. What is it, 30, 40, 50 pounds lighter than any other trolling motor on the market? So I can pick that thing up with ease now. I'm not trying to double hand anything. I grab it, set it on the front deck, and away I go. I can do it all day. It's kind of like my flipping stick. I want the lightest reel with the most drag and the lightest rod and the biggest braid I can put on there. That's what I love about the power pole move, man. They have lightest, fastest, quietest motor on the market today.
Yeah, there's a lot of technology built into that. And, you know, taking the things like that old school low profile gator mount allowed us to do what we do, is make it light, but then make bigger bushings to make it strong. And then Chris, you touched on something about it driving through weeds and cover, because every trolling motor does that or tries to do that. But I don't think a lot of people know what that move is actually doing. You know, when you set it on speed 7 or speed 10 and you go into the weeds, normally every trolling motor, you hit the weeds and you're going 1,000 RPMs. Well, the move, when you're on speed 10 and you hit the weeds, the move wants to keep going on speed 10. So if you're at 1,000 RPMs when you hit the weeds, instead of your amperage going up, the move increases your RPMs and torque for you. So you just keep plowing through the weeds, plowing through the moves, almost like four-wheel drive. So it's doing things and adjusting the torque and the speed while you just keep fishing and plowing through the thick stuff. And I know, Bobby, you got old Keith Pochet sitting next to you in the cab, and he knows a little bit about plowing through the backwaters and getting where you can't, other boats can't. So it's fun to see all three of y'all.
He goes off the grid. Old Keith does here. He's off the grid.
He does. We need to make things that are Bobby Lane, Chris Lane, and Pochet approved. But I do. Thank you guys for taking the time to joining me today on the Power Pull Down podcast.
I've been very, very grateful.
Yeah, it's been a great partnership, for both of you. Almost 20 years here at Power Pull, and good luck at the next event and the rest of the season. And look forward to you fishing tomorrow, Bobby and the heavy hitters, and we'll see how that one ends up.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me, Dan. Good to see you, Pinto. I'll see you in a few weeks at Kentucky Lake. It's our next Bass Pro Tour. Yeah, we're doing our job, having fun out here catching bass, and we can't do it without you guys. So thank you for everything.
Yes, thanks again. And hey, if you haven't checked out the Power Pull products, I mean, there again, you catch more fish with them, hands down, because you are in control of all of their products.
You are absolutely right. We set it out of the box how we think it should run right, but we give you guys the ability to make it more powerful, make it less powerful, and to be able to get you where you need to go and stop your boat. So it is fun developing things, and we're always coming out with new stuff. So keep your eyes open. Thank you, guys.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.